Hello everyone, welcome to Pro-Am Strings. I'm Henriette and I am wishing everyone a warm welcome who's joining this channel here at this moment for our live session. I'm delighted to host this as my once in a month connection with you, my audience. So if you're a member of Henriette's Violin Club, you can ask the questions in this live class. If you are just visiting, you're more than welcome and you can watch in, and this video will stay on the channel for those who have missed it today, so you can view it, you can watch it at a later time. So many people here today. I'm absolutely delighted to see all of you here. So welcome and apologies for the delay in starting. Like I said, this is due to me wanting to be super fancy, but failed miserably. Anyway, hopefully before our next live stream we can maybe sort it out. So you know all how this goes. You can write your messages in the chat box and then send it, and then I can see your messages and I can answer your questions. So who wants to go first? Usually I say you can have a practice round and just tell me where you are. I know from some of you already where you are because you are familiar faces. There are a couple of people here who I don't know, so welcome. If this is your first live chat, then it's really lovely to see you here. So who's going to go first with their first question? Oh, hello, there's someone here from Tennessee. That is just really lovely to see. I don't think we've had anyone from Tennessee in recent months, in recent live streams. So very much welcome to you. It's lovely to see you here. I know some people are from the UK, and I think Kirsty is from Finland, if I'm right. So welcome as well. And here's another person joining us from Toronto. Welcome. Connie Mickelson from Toronto. Lovely to see you here. So anyone who is a member of Henriette's Violin Club can ask the questions and everyone else can listen in. So if you are a member and you want to ask a question, please go ahead. This video, by the way, will stay on YouTube for anyone who is arriving late or who is well ahead of me. Maybe you can watch it afterwards. Some people obviously have work on a Friday afternoon and therefore people can watch it later. Oh, hello, Enika from Serbia. Okay. Whilst we're waiting for the first questions to come up, because there's a slight delay, as I said, in when I get you to see your messages, someone's asked a question about counting music, and I thought today would be a really good time to perhaps talk a little bit about how to count music. And I have written some notes here and I'll go over it, and I'm sure that some of you will already know how to count this music and others may not yet be completely familiar or just unsure about how to count music. So we have got a short piece of music here in 4/4 time, as you can see. That means there are 4 quarter notes in each bar. Each bar is a section between bar lines. So here's a bar line, there we go, and here's another bar line. And each section in between bar lines is called a bar. So in this section we've got 4 quarter notes in each bar, and you can see them right here. When we count music like that, we count them like this, and I'll just write the counting underneath. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll just count each beat as it comes. 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you look at our second bar, we have got, sorry, I'm messing up my left and right. 1. This beat here is split into 2 halves, and then we've got 3, 4 there. Now when a beat is split in halves like here, instead of 1 quarter note we've got 2 eighth notes. and I'm going to use the word and to help me hear how that will sound. In counting, I will say this. When I count my music, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. This is how I will be counting. Okay, now whenever I have 2 eighth notes, 2 quavers, I add the word and. But I could have more quavers. I could swap some of these quarter notes for quavers, and I might go like this. So again, we're in 4/4 time, and I'm going 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2. Let me do it this way. So let's see if we can work out this rhythm here. I'm just seeing how I can read it and still see. So when we get here, we'll now count 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to write the counting underneath for you to maybe read it. Feel free to take screenshots or maybe even photographs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you may all know this already. I've got my left and right muddled up. So we're getting 1 and 2 and 3. 3 is a normal beat, not the word and. 4 and 1, 2, and this is a 2 count note, so I'll hold it for 3, 4. Okay. I think that this may be familiar to you. So from here we can add some dotted rhythms. I'm still going to play in 4/4 time, and I'm going to go like this. Let me just make it a tiny bit more difficult. So we're in 4/4 time on my last example, and now we're counting. Where are we here? Hang on, I'm just trying to make that clear for you. Switch it this way and now turn it this way. There we are. Now we're counting slightly more than one count, than one beat. 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this eighth note, this quaver here, which is a single one, I'm trying to get this into view for you this way. This is really the second half of the second beat. So I'll count this like this. 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This way you can perhaps see it best. Okay, so we're going 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could say we add the word and when we've got this eighth note here. We could also say we're trying to work it out and reducing the music to its smallest note value. Now the shortest note value in this case is the eighth note. I could also subdivide this dotted quarter note into 3 eighth notes, and I could count it like that. So I could subdivide it into this. 1, 2, 3. sorry, I'm still messing up my board, don't I? So if I reduce this quarter note here to its shortest note value, which is the 8th note here, there are two eighth notes. There we are. That make up this dotted crotchet plus 1. So if you look here, I've written it over the top here, 1 and 2, and this is the and of the second beat. Okay. I'm hoping that this will make the idea of counting a little bit less frightening, because I know from experience that starting to play is the easy part, isn't it? But then starting to count for many people is a very scary aspect of playing. Now, of course, this is only one of the time signatures that we can come across. But once you've got this principle sorted, then it's much easier to work it out from there. So let me now, as a bit of a challenge, add another one, and let's go into 3/4 time. When we're in 3/4 time, there are 3 quarter beats in each bar. Here we go. In 3/4 time, there are 3 quarter beats in each bar. And we'll count 1, 2, 3. The main emphasis is always on the 1. So you say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The strongest beat is always the first one. Now, what if I'm going to subdivide the second and third beat into quavers, into 8th notes? In Canada and in America, you'd certainly use the words quarter notes and 8 notes, don't you? In Europe, I'm not so sure. Most people in England say 8 notes. Most people in Europe would also say 8 notes. So now we're getting, where's my 1 here? 1, 2, and 3, and. Now I know, let me write this first, how we're counting this. So we're splitting the second and third beats into 2 8th notes here, and I'll add the word and when I count. Now what if I come across a dotted note? Again, we're in 3/4 time, and I'm doing a dotted quarter. Now a dot after a note means add half as much again. And we're going to count it like that. Here we are. So we're going to go 1. Where the second beat begins, I don't quite know, because this first beat lasts longer than the beginning of the second beat, you see. So I'll just say 2, but I do know where the second half of the second beat is, and that is and here. 3 and. So this goes 1, 2, and 3 and. So my music goes da, 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 da. So I'm reducing it down to its shortest note value, which is the 8th note here. I could also subdivide this whole dotted quarter note into 3 quavers. I could go 1, 2, 3, dum, bum, bum. Does that make sense? The first beat, if I split that in half, it would be 2 8th notes. The dot means I'll add half as much again. So that is my third one. And then here is the second half of the second beat of this bar. And I'm hoping that this has clarified this for someone who's here. Okay, let me know how that is for you. If you've got any more questions about this counting, then please go ahead as well. I'm just reading through my chat box and see if if any more questions have come in. So the question of Kirsty is, how can I relax my shoulders before I play? And indeed, she's from Finland. Hello. I seem to remember that from last time, and your name is a bit of a giveaway as well, isn't it? It looks Finnish to me. How can you relax your shoulders before you play? Now, there are many different exercises, and one course that you may have come across is the Mindfulness for Violin Players course. I have done this course because I have felt that a lot of people ask me this question: how can I relax my shoulders? You can start to relax your shoulders by pulling them up really high and then dropping them down in this lowest position, and do that a few times, because relaxing your shoulders is more a matter of becoming aware when there is tension in your shoulders. So do that a few times and really feel the difference. Can you lift your shoulders up? You might do this with me. So I'm hoping that all over the world people are going like this now. Okay, raise your shoulders and then drop them down, and see if you can feel a real difference between that tension and that relaxation. And it's becoming aware that you might be going like that, or for violin players it's usually your left side that goes up, and lots of violin players actually have grown a little bit lopsided. Can you see? I'm deliberately pulling up my left shoulder now, but you can see that it is slightly higher than the right side, isn't it? So if I relax that consciously, it comes back in line here. And that is a very useful aspect of your violin playing, if you can become aware of when you are tensing any sort of muscles. So we're talking about the shoulders at this stage, so you might just do this exercise to increase awareness of where that tension is. Now, something else that you might do is roll your shoulders back and roll them forward. But another exercise that I find really, really useful is to lift up your elbows like that, and now do that. Drop your elbows like this. So you can again all do this with me if you like. And now do the same thing, raising your shoulders, now dropping your elbows. And you can perhaps feel, this feels very uncomfortable to me, but you can perhaps feel that there is independence between your elbows and your shoulders. Now I'm dropping my shoulders down and I'm raising my elbows again. And it's that awareness that's going to help your violin playing as well. Now, of course, we have got one more aspect to our shoulders in violin playing, and that is because we are lifting our left arm up, of course, and bringing our left elbow under the violin. And you want to be able to do this without raising your shoulder at the same time. So you might try this. Pretend you have your violin in your left arm, and now raise your shoulder. And that feels really, really strained. And I can feel it here, my bicep, but I can also feel it here. And I can even feel it here. You can even see my tendons here, can't you? And that is because my shoulder is high. Now, I can still feel it here a little bit when I drop my shoulder, but it is much less, there is much less strain on my wrist when my shoulder is low. So you might practice that without your instrument first, and then as the next step, you might practice it with your instrument. Let's think about your bow arm now. What I see a lot of is when people bow, every time they play an up bow, if you can see it like that, they raise their shoulder. I can even do it with my elbow a bit lower. Every time I play an up bow, my shoulder comes up. So practice this without your instrument, and you become more aware of what happens to your shoulder. Okay, now can you do that with your shoulder in its lowest position? It's a very useful exercise to do. So this way you become more aware of where the tension is, and it is very useful to occasionally have a practice session where you think, okay, in most violin players' bodies there is some tension, whether it is you gripping your jaw and grinding your teeth, you might go down there. I'd actually suggest you start at the bottom, so start with the soles of your feet and just check. A very good exercise is to play in your socks or bare feet, so you're more aware of how the soles of your feet make contact with the floor. Make sure that you don't sort of squeeze your toes, and that you don't stand sideways, but you feel the four corners of your feet in contact with the floor, and then you work your way up and you feel, is there any tension in my ankles? Is there any tension in my shins or knees, or am I clasping my buttocks? What about my core muscles? Now those are the ones that I will allow you to have a bit more tension, because it makes you stand up taller if your core is engaged. But then again, you want to make sure that your arms are really, really nice and soft. Your shoulders, as you've already indicated, are really nice and soft, and that your neck is also very soft. So you might do an exercise like that, shaking a big yes, as I call it, and a big no. And you can perhaps feel whether your neck is very crunchy. And I can feel now that mine is extremely crunchy today because I've had a very, very busy day yesterday. And you might just, together with me, try and relax that a little bit. And those are some exercises. But do check out my Mindfulness for Violin Players course, because there are all sorts of exercises to help you become aware of where the tension in your body is, and help you eliminate it. Very good question from Enika. Thank you for that question. We have to stand correctly with our violin in front of a music stand. Yes, that is a very, very good point that you make. This is the whole reason why we use a music stand. If I were to stand in front of this desk and I were to play from my music, which was flat on the table, I would stand and play like that, wouldn't I? So when you stand in front of your music stand, you want to put the music stand so high that your music can be at eye height. Now, I don't think you can see my music stands because I've just moved them out of the picture, and I've got one. I'll show you. I'll just bring them in the picture. Here's one. This is for children, but here's my other music stand. And this one I use a lot with teenagers who have got a lot taller than I have. And you can see how tall this music stand can go. Now for me this would be a little bit too tall. Let me put a music book on it. And you can perhaps see that this music is now above eye height. So I would stand like this. But for me the right height would be, I'm thinking about where the middle of my page is, and it should be about at eye height, so that I neither stand too tall or too far forward. So if you haven't got a music stand, it might well be worth investing in one, because it does affect how tense your shoulders are. It does affect how your playing develops, and people often say to me, music stands are expensive, especially the more stable ones. They are very expensive. Mind you, first they last for years. I mean, that tall music stand I bought when I was a student, a conservatoire student, which is about 100 years ago. So that lasts for a long time. But it does affect your progress on the violin as well. And if you look at it from that perspective, I think spending, well, a proper, like, orchestra type music stand like my black one is about £60 in England. I don't know exactly what they are like in Canada or in Serbia even, but they're still quite a hefty sum, but well worth it. You know now perhaps that I've got a website, and that we have got a new shop, so you can go on there, and actually if you access it from the US you get a different page compared with if you access it from the UK, for instance, because it's linked to the different Amazon stores. So you don't risk nowadays to get things sent to America from Amazon.co.uk and the other way around, from Amazon.com to the UK. So go on there. There's some nice music stands available, and like I said, they are a good investment to your playing. What am I looking for then in a music stand? I'm looking for one that is sturdy. I'm also looking for one that hasn't got legs that are too wide, because I'm going to trip over them. And I have got a little thingy, which I'm not sure is already on my music stand, but this is a little extender. Can you see that? And I love this thing because it makes my shelf a little bit, it's called a music stand shelf, I think. It makes my music stand a little bit wider at the bottom here, so that books don't fall off quite so easily, and I can put, it's ribbed, so I can put a pencil on there and it won't fall off. So I could definitely recommend that. And then you can perhaps see from my black one, I have got a light on here. It's not switched on, but it's a light that takes a while to come on. So that I find very, very handy too. Enough about music stand. This is about the shoulders. It helps to make me warm up before playing. Okay. Experiment with your shoulders and see. You can do nice little dance-like games like that, and it's a bit more interesting perhaps than just go up and down, but just roll them a little bit. And I think that makes it a little bit easier. Is there anyone else who's got a question? What is the best way to make sure I am bowing straight? That is a very, very good question as well, because that is very hard to tell, isn't it? You can use a mirror, but still it is quite difficult to tell if you're bowing perfectly straight. And the best way is obviously an onlooker, a member of your family or a friend to tell you exactly, but you'd have to be very specific and tell them what to look out for. In general, I would say if you feel that you're stretching, then you're about right. If you feel that, oh, I'm stretching here, the back of my upper arm in particular, then you're more straight. There is, of course, a little risk that if you overstretch, that you go sideways the wrong way round. But I think in the heat of your playing, that will usually come back to the center. It is just that angle that you want to make sure that you eliminate. Most people think, I'm perfectly straight, but actually they're still a little bit like this. So you might go in front of a mirror and just learn to feel, and you might close your eyes. I'm going in the middle at the moment, but it would be better if I was more towards a point, and then I might think, is this straight? Close my eyes, feel if you're straight, then check. Oh no, I'm not straight at all. Then I'm going to a different position. Is this straight? Oh no, I've now overshot it. Can you see? So you want to start to feel where that is. And perhaps just now you can see those little movements in my upper arm. Can you see? And that is what gauges whether you are straight or out of kilter, you see? So it's this upper arm movement. Because when you bow, that is the first thing that goes. I'll bow you a straight bow. So this bit, I was just moving my upper arm back, look, like this. Can you see? Tiny little movement like that. But at some point, I'm going to add my forearm to it. Again, I'm doing it in mirror image. There we are. Now if I stand up, you can see how far forwards I'm reaching. Can you see that? So it's that far. But try it with a mirror. And if you find that is a bit tricky, then you might ask a friend to come, or a family member to check out on you. But you'd have to be very specific and check and tell them what you're looking out for. Excuse me. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? Oh, this is also a very good one. Thank you, Annika, for asking this question. When we practice with the video, what is the best way to have the music stand? It depends a little bit. If you have a video lesson, I always say to people, have your camera on the right hand side, so your screen is here and your music stand is slightly to the left, and that makes you more visible in front of the camera. Now that works as well if you're playing from the music stand, because what has happened, you could also have it straight in front, but most people don't have a sort of a difference in height, isn't it? When I'm teaching, I definitely have my books slightly below my screen. My screen happens to be quite high up, and my music is below the screen, so it's just here. I'm dropping it down slightly. Can you see it? Here it is. So I play facing the computer, but that doesn't work for every setup. And if that doesn't work for you, what you might do is find a pile of books and put it underneath your computer. So you raise the computer a little bit and your books can be below it. I'm not sure if that works, but if you have an online lesson, I would suggest you place your music stand with your books to the left of your screen, so that when I see you on camera, you are facing this way slightly and I can see you bow. And then you want to be slightly further back, because I need to see the left elbow and I need to see the bow hand as well, you see. I'm hoping if that's not muddled you and got you in a muddle more than helping with that. But yeah, if you, I'm just thinking right now, if you had, like my desk is against the wall, so I couldn't place anything behind it. But if you had a freestanding desk, you might actually place your music stand right behind it and just coming up above the screen, and then you could play. You'd be facing up a little bit higher. But that maybe is easier than having your music too low. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? Can you remember we had a violin clinic the other day about when to rehair your bow? When did you rehair your bow for the last time? I've been asking all my pupils about this week just to gauge, and most people have not actually rehaired their bow in the last year. So whoever brought this up, thank you very much for a very good point, well made, that we all need to make our playing a lot easier with good bow hair. And even this week as well, when I was checking all the bows of everyone who came for lessons, I noticed that very few people rosin their bows every day. So that is another point that you might take away from this class, is to rosin your bow much more. Obviously, when you are rosining your bow much more, together with the rosin, you'll need a duster to dust that rosin off your violin, because what happens, what is rosin? Rosin is sap from a tree, resin from a tree that has been prepared in a factory and been cooked in a pot and then melted into some shapes. And but the rosin has a chemical reaction with the varnish of your violin, and if you would leave the rosin on your violin, like whatever falls down after playing, you can even see I've got some rosin on my strings. You can see it's on my finger. Can you see? But always some rosin falls down here as well. And if you left that on year after year after year, you'd find that the varnish would get very, very thin. So you'd want to, every time after playing, you'd want to grab a duster and just dust that off, so that your varnish stays in place. Okay, so the more you rosin, the more you'll have to dust as well. But you'll find if you rosin your bow after this class and then play, you'll find your bow will track much better, and you'll feel more resistance when you pull the bow across the string, so you are able to manipulate the bow much more when you've got plenty of rosin on it. So if you're one of those people who rosins their bow once a week or less, then can I recommend that you start to rosin before every time you play, or you could even rosin after every time you play, so that you've got your bow rosined and ready to go for your next lesson or your next playing session. So just to tell you how inspiring you've been, I mean, you can see my bow and it's got a little bit brown here, can't you? So I've just this week arranged for the violin maker to rehair my bow just before Christmas, so that after the Christmas holidays I'll have a very nice new bow hair. So in January, come the new year, I'd be very happy having a good bow to play on. Yes, Moody says, should I wipe down my strings after playing to remove excess rosin? Absolutely, yes, because you noticed it already a little bit when I was just doing that. My teacher always used to do this. It gives me goosebumps. Oh, it's a horrible feeling, but you can actually feel the rosin come off. So yes, you can do that. You can clean your strings with cleaning alcohol, and that is very good at dissolving the rosin that's gone into your strings, but please be aware that cleaning alcohol is even worse for the varnish than rosin. So you want to, before you do that, is cover your violin like this before you clean your strings with cleaning alcohol, and I'd really do it like that so that no spills can fall on the varnish of your violin at all. Okay, so if you use cleaning alcohol 70% on your strings, it will take the rosin off, but be very, very careful. You may remember at some point during the pandemic, and I'd spilled some hand sanitizer on the varnish of my violin. Maybe some of you can remember that. And that did actually come off. I just used a varnish cleaner, which is like that whitey stuff, and it did all come off miraculously. So if you don't leave it on for ages, I think things can be salvaged, luckily, because that was a big scare. Anyone else? Okay, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, who are here, we were talking about dotted rhythms just now, weren't we? And I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I'm going to rub all of this out that I've written on my board, because my example was about quarter note and eighth notes, isn't it? Now, what always looks extremely scary is when you go at faster paces. So I'm going to go back to 4/4 time, and I'm going to go like this. This is a bit of a riddle. I'm wondering if someone can tell me how to count this. So just write it in numbers on your in your chat box, and in a moment I'm going to give you the answer to that. Because some new questions have come in, and I'll answer those first before we get to this question here. Can adults play violin? Hello Ali, nice to see you here. Yes, adults can play the violin miraculously well, isn't it? When I was learning to play the violin, I was told, you know, some people can never become very good violin players because they start too late. And actually, I have so often in my career come across adults who've been totally committed to learning to play the violin and who've got really, really well advanced. So my unreserved answer is, of course, adults can learn to play the violin. And sometimes adults learn faster than children as well, because most children learn by just doing and failing 100 times, and then they get it right the 101st time. Adults, of course, learn quite often in a far more structured way, and they can think about what they're doing, like this very useful question about straight bowing. How can I check I'm bowing straight? And that is much more a much quicker way of learning than experimenting with what sounds the best and then eventually finding out that your bowing is straight. Actually, you could have a friend checking you that you're straight and then learning that. So yes, adults can learn to play the violin, and adults can go a long way on the violin. So I'm not talking about adults becoming professional violinists, although I have seen that happen as well. But luckily, playing the violin is one of those skills as well as many sports, shall we say, is that at whatever level you're doing it, you can really enjoy it. And isn't that the main aspect, the main reason why you learn to play an instrument, is that you enjoy learning the pieces that you've always wanted to play. So maybe becoming a professional is a slightly more difficult way to do it when you are starting as an adult, but you can become a very, very accomplished player as well. So all credit to all of you who are all adults and are all learning. So I'm always in awe of people who are embracing this hobby as something so serious, and I very much enjoy teaching adults. And in fact, a large proportion of my private teaching practice at the moment is teaching adults, and I have been in awe of people thinking about it, mulling things over, working at rhythms, which we'll come to in a second, and sorting out their technique. So I'm super pleased with that. Let me just go and read some more comments. I'm just coming back to the trail about this learning to play the violin as an adult. Samuel Joseph says, I'm 44, start violin, what is my chance? That's a difficult question, a different question again, isn't it? That all depends on how willing you are to put the hours in, because I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but if you're willing to learn and you set your goals in a reasonable way. So I once had a pupil come to me who was in her 40s, I think, and she said to me, Henriette, my goal is to learn to play my goal is to learn to play the Beethoven violin concerto. Chances are that will be a too high a goal. But if you at this stage, it's really, really lovely. Lots of people come to me and say, Henriette, I'm not very advanced. Can I play a Christmas carol or any sort of timely piece, Halloween songs, happy birthday, any sort of time of year pieces, shall we say, or your favourite pop tunes, whatever you want to play. If you set your goals at a reasonable standard, then that is very well possible. This lady, I must say, after about 10 lessons, she said, you have shown me that actually this goal is unattainable for me, because I have got a half an hour a week to practice. So thank you very much. And that was that. But, people will learn by experimenting and trying things out, isn't it? So let me just see, what is it? Consistent practice is crucial too. You're absolutely right, Connie. Consistent practice, really thinking about it is definitely the thing. And keeping coming back to things you've already learned before. Some of you may know that I am learning Chinese, which is, for me, is just excruciatingly difficult. And I keep forgetting how to write the characters. So if I don't every day write the same characters, I will forget them. And it's the same with violin playing. You want to be very consistent and make it your task every day just to pick the instrument up and do a little bit of practice. And it's the same with me. And it's so lovely for me to experience something that I cannot do, that is not my natural ability to do. Okay, still I can learn a little bit of Chinese and really enjoy learning it. And I enjoy learning it even more because I can totally sympathize how difficult it is for you guys to learn something that you've never done before. So that is really good. So I congratulate all of you. Someone says I'm 50 and I began in February this year. commendable, really, really good. So Moody says 55 and very much a beginner. Why not? Absolutely right. Angie says 55, started 2 years ago, working to grade 5. Yes, it's all possible. Yeah, Angie, I happen to know because Angie has private lessons with me as well, and she is super consistent in her practice. Whenever she can, she applies herself fully to every single practice, and she is reaping the rewards. So that is the thing, isn't it? She practices just the right things at the right time, and she is very, very consistent and meticulous about her practice. So yes, it's definitely, and I think it is very enjoyable for Angie as well to do it, which helps that consistency, isn't it? So if you ever learn anything that you don't 100% enjoy, if you have a teacher, tell the teacher. Or if you are learning without a teacher and you're not 100% enjoying what you're doing, change your repertoire. And we're very lucky as violin players because we've got a vast repertoire. Unlike, say, if you played the tuba, and there would be just specific tunes that you would be able to play, and there wouldn't be 1/100th of the number of different pieces that you could potentially play as there are on the violin. So we're lucky because, so I would definitely say if you have something that you are stressing about or you find just a bit too challenging to play, swap it for something that is a bit easier and that keeps your consistency of your practice up, because that is so important. Wow, I am just very, very much admiring all of you guys just learning. Now I see some comments looking at that comment section now about how to count this. Remember, we were doing this, and this is our final thing of today that we're going to do. So let me tell you a little bit about this here. So if you have given up on this because it is super difficult, and I was saying I'm challenging you a little bit here, we have got 4/4 time, haven't you? We know where beat number 1 is, and we also perhaps know where beats number 3 and 4 are. So let me write those numbers in first. We know where beat number 1 is, and we know where beats number 3 and 4 are. Now let's look at those fast beats now. They are 2 16th notes, and in England we call them 2 semiquavers. 2 16th notes or 2 semiquavers together add up to 1 8th note or 1 quaver. I'm going to write that above it. Can you see that? So that is the same. What's in blue is the same as what's in black underneath. Now you might recognize how we count this. And I'm going to write it underneath. I'm going to write and underneath here. Can you see that? Now this is the and of the second beat in the bar. We know the first beat is a dotted quarter note, so it is longer than just one beat. It is, if I reduce this down, if I reduce this down to 8th notes as well, hang on, writing the one I've rubbed out another one. Okay, so when we are here, this first count here, that I find that very difficult to point at the right notes. This quarter note here consists, or would be the equivalent of 2 8th notes at the top here. A dot after this note here, can you see there's a tiny dot? Where is it now? Here. Okay, means add half as much again. So my 2 8th notes here become 3. Can you see that? Because I'm adding half as much again. Then we said, okay, these 2 16th notes reduce down to 1 8th note. And now you can perhaps see the pattern, and I'm going to write it underneath. I can write it like this. So it is this plus this plus this. Where are we here? So this is that first quarter note. Oh my goodness, I can't find my left and right. There. Okay. Then this eighth note here is the dot, and the other eighth note equals those two 16th notes. So this all together, and now you can see the pattern. I'm going to count 1, I say 2, but I don't actually hear when that starts to play, and. So you can perhaps see now that 1, 2 and 3, 4. Okay, and those two 16th notes here, they come in the time of this and. So on my violin, I'll play it for you in a second. It goes da. I'll do that again. Da 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 dum bum. Now I could also say 1, 2 da da dim bum. Let me play that on your violin. So I'll play it on an open string. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. There you go. So this is how it sounds on my violin. Feel free to take a screenshot of it. Hang on. Feel free to take a screenshot of this and mull it over. Okay. And hopefully one day you can work this out. Now this is difficult stuff. So this is maybe not for the very beginners, but you know, before you know it, you will be able to do this. There we go. I'm just looking at my thing, and I'm at my chat box, and I am in awe of you, and I'm saying thank you very much, Connie. That is very, very generous. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say. I'm quite overwhelmed. Brilliant. So Samuel says, one more question. I have a cheap violin. Can use it until I master it, or do I need to buy a certain period of my learning experience? Now, that is a very useful question, and many of the other people who are here in this chat will have some experience with that. And I have many pupils who come to realize that actually the very cheap violins are actually not meant to be violins to learn on. They're usually meant to be violins to try things out and then to upgrade and learn on something different. Because a violin will certainly give you back to the value of what there is. And I'll explain to you what that means. At a certain point in your playing, and for some people that comes relatively early on, we are working to improve our sound quality. But if the instrument doesn't have the sound quality that we're looking for, you can practice and be consistent all you like, but if it's not that quality, is not in the violin, then you're never going to achieve that idea. So cheap violins are usually sort of just for trying it out, and they will actually hamper your development on the instrument big time. So what I'd suggest you do is to upgrade as soon as you can possibly afford, and not only will you have the pleasure of playing a better quality instrument, you will also improve much more quickly as a result of your instrument. And that doesn't only go for your violin, that certainly is also because of also the case with the bow. I'll give you an example of another pupil of mine who I teach remotely, she used to have a very, very cheap bow, and she was practicing this straight bowing, honestly, wildly often. Every day she was having a go at it, but the bow didn't quite track on the strings because it was simply too flexible, and every time she would steer the bow it would bend, and she could never get to play straight bows until she upgraded the bow and she could do it in a day. And that sums it up, that you have to be quite wary of playing on very cheap instruments. And this is one of the reasons why I have developed my shop, because I found that so many people put so much effort in and they didn't really get the results that I would reasonably expect from the amount of effort, because the quality of the instrument and the bow was just not up to the standard that we do require, because learning to play the violin is not a simple skill. You really want to get put the amount of input in to get a good sound, but then get quality sound in return, you see. And I'm very sad to see when people play on instruments that don't actually have the sound, that they work their socks off to get it, and it sometimes doesn't come. So if you are in a position to upgrade, then by all means do, because your playing will benefit in every aspect, and moreover you will enjoy it so much more. So enough about that. And I very much, at the same time, I'm realistic enough, especially in this climate where there is a cost of living crisis, especially in the UK, where people are not in a position to upgrade their instruments. And I'm really, really sorry. Time will tell if we eventually can upgrade the instruments. If you're in any way serious about learning, and especially young people, and I teach a young lady in the Caribbean who's very keen to become a professional violinist, there are funds around for those who are young and have got bit different ambitions. I mean, she wants to be a jazz violinist, and there are funds available by art to get art grants and that sort of thing. But for adults learning, I'm afraid it's a bit different on that front. But as soon as you're in a position to upgrade your instrument, that is not money wasted. So please go for it. Someone else said, Enika says, this theory class was gorgeous. It's difficult, but there is a theory class on my YouTube channel as well. How to learn theory music notes or something it's called. You can perhaps see it on the home page. If you scroll down the home page of my YouTube channel, you can find it there, and you can learn how to count. Which one would be your recommendation? Type of violin, where can I get it? 500 is your budget at the moment. Go on my website, www.proamstrings.com. There are several links under each of the videos that you see on my channel, and you can find really good violins there in different price categories. Now, whatever says Stentor is good. So Stentor 1 is the most basic level, really good violin. If you can afford to upgrade to Stentor 2, even better, and they go up from there. You can find them all on my website. If you go to the top of the website where it says shop, hover over the word shop, and you'll find a drop down menu. You'll find instruments, bows, violin cases, shoulder rests, sheet music, books about music. At this time of year, violin related gifts, so you might put those on your Christmas list as well, or give them to any violin player that you know. There's just some fun articles that I've found and put on there, but there's only products on my shop that I have pre-selected for you, and that's the whole reason why I put the shop on there, is that when you open any Amazon page, there's a vast array of instruments, and most people just get overwhelmed by the amount of crap that there is available as well. Excuse the word, but go on my website and you'll know that what's on there is of decent quality and is going to help you move your playing forward. Okay, let me see. Final question. I don't think there is a question anymore. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Apologies again for the slightly disrupted start, and I look forward to seeing you again. Now, we may or may not, depending on the time, do a Christmas live stream. I'll advertise this on the channel, so if you subscribe to the channel, you get notified whenever I post something on there. So there may or may not be a very Christmassy live stream at Christmas. So I look forward to seeing you there, and I look forward to seeing you in any other video on my channel. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.